Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines. I have Sheriff Willie Graves. He's the sheriff for the entire parish of Livingston Parish. He succeeded his father, who was Odom Graves, and has been working at the police department, the sheriff's department, for over 40 years. He's going to talk about the explosion in the population in the parish and the services that the sheriff of Livingston Parish provides. So join me on the next Legal Lines with Sheriff Willie Graves.
Want to learn the secret to big savings on TV, internet, and phone? It's bundling your services with Cox. When you bundle with Cox, you get digital cable, high-speed internet with Power Boost, and telephone, all for one low monthly price. That's 3 fantastic services at one low price that will make you smile. The secret is out. The more you bundle, the more you save. So get a whole lot and save a whole lot when you bundle with Cox.
Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Very pleased to have on the show today Sheriff Willie Graves. He's the sheriff for Livingston Parish. Sheriff, thank you so much for being on Legal Lines.
My pleasure, Locke.
Tell the folks a little bit about yourself. You've been there forever.
Well, I've been at the sheriff's office July 1st to be 34 years, and
Amazing.
Pretty much grew up in the sheriff's office. As many of you know, my dad was sheriff before I was, and went to work at the sheriff's office actually a year before I was born. So I ran the halls of the courthouse when I was a little kid. So.
Well, take it back. So when you're a little kid, Dad was sheriff, or was he working there?
No, my dad was a deputy sheriff and ultimately chief deputy, and back then he was LP5, and there was no LP6 because
So
there was that was 5, and he was the main guy. He worked all the time, and as kids growing up, you know, many times we'd go to bed when he wasn't home. He used to be out working, and when he did come home, he'd be gone again before we got up because he was it. He was the guy, and so he dedicated his life to that office, and he loved what he did, and so you know, we just grew up in that environment. It was exciting at times and scary at times.
Missed him some too, I bet.
Yeah, we did.
Maybe that was the way to be around him, huh? Run the halls.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, on Saturdays he'd work, so he'd let me ride with him, and I'd hang out in the old dispatch upstairs with the guys where he'd go catch calls. Or the fun part for me was to get to escort a funeral or a Bible school parade because they got to blow the siren. So that was kind of cool, but for a kid growing up, it was fun.
So you've been there. I know you've seen a whole lot of change since the early days.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, you know, again, when I was a kid, we had maybe 10 or 12 people working at the sheriff's office. The population of the parish may have been 15, 20,000, and here we are, you know, 30-something, 40-something years later, and 125,000, and so yeah, things have changed. To say
population has really increased. As I understand it, in fact, Livingston Parish is the fastest growing parish in the state of Louisiana.
It is. We were behind St. Tammany for quite a while, and then just a couple of years ago, we bumped right past them, and us and St. Tammany and Ascension are pretty much neck and neck. What's really amazing is that we're in the top 100 of the fastest growing counties in the nation, and when you think about it, how many counties and parishes there are in this nation, that's a lot. So it's kind of weird.
And I know that a lot of building has taken place over there to reflect that. I mean, if you got people moving, they got to have places to live, and there's been a ton of construction over there that y'all have had to deal with.
We have, and there's subdivisions popping up everywhere. Obviously, the economy has slowed that down a little bit. There's some subdivisions under development that have kind of slowed down or pretty much come to a stop, but I fully expect when the economy starts coming back, hopefully in the next year or two, that housing boom will continue and will continue to grow.
Well, let's talk about your dad became sheriff when?
He was elected in 1995 and took over, 1975 and took over in 1976, July 1st.
And then, and his name was Odom Graves, and he served for 20 years, I believe.
He was 20 years as deputy and 20 years as sheriff, but he was there for a total of 40 years.
Wow, long time.
Yeah.
And then during that period of time, you, I guess, started working, was it part-time or initially full-time?
It was initially part-time. Went to work for him July 1st, 1976. I was a dispatcher / jailer. Working the dog shift, and if there was a low man on the totem pole at the time, that would have been me.
You were it, huh?
That's right.
No favoritism going on with Dad, huh?
Yeah, well, exactly. And as a young man, I didn't understand it. It didn't really matter whether I understood or not. This is what he had me to do, and that's what I had to do. But in hindsight, I look back now and see just how wise that was of him to do that for me, because it gave me a chance to really do the work and pay my dues, if you will, and to work my way up and earn the right to be a deputy, and not just because I was his son, but because I was, you know, a deputy or a young man within my own right. So, as in the case, most cases, my dad, he was right again.
Tell me about your educational background.
Well, I went to Live Oak High School, graduated in 1975, went to LSU, and that was about the time of my accident, so that kind of set things back. So when I recovered from it, I was off for a little over a year from that, and So when I came back, that just kind of, my life changed and my world changed, my priorities changed. So that's when I decided, well, I'm going to stay. And I was already full-time with the sheriff's office at that time. So school just said, well, I'm not going back there. I'm going to stick to my career here, and that's what I did. Well, and I graduated the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, and the LSU Law Enforcement Training Institute, Law Enforcement Academy, and other things.
Continuing education
yes.
throughout your history with the Sheriff's Department. Let's talk about, you initially indicated you were kind of low man on the totem pole. What positions did you hold after that?
Well, after dispatcher and...
Because this is really kind of the trek that you have to take, the track that someone takes.
Sure, yeah, exactly right. Most of my key people that are working for me now in key positions started out as correctional officers with very little, if any, experience. But after about a year or so, I finally convinced my dad that I wanted to work the road. You know, everybody wants to work the road, but he knew I wasn't ready. I need to have a little seasoning.
Well, it's dangerous, isn't it?
It is dangerous. He was worried for me, and he knew what was out there. But after about a year or so, he relented and finally put me on the road, and he worked uniform patrol. And back then, uniform patrol did everything, and I was one of few. There were times after midnight I was the only unit on the road.
Really?
Yeah, 21.
And that's 100 square miles parish.
Yeah, almost 700 square mile parish. There were times I was the only unit working. I was 21 years old. You had fights you had to fight, and you had issues you had to deal with, and you were it. There was no backup coming. There was no backup period. You were the only guy there. Job, huh? So you learn the hard way. And then after my accident, I moved into the office and eventually became administrative assistant.
Let's talk about your accident, because you've already indicated that was a life-changing event for you that kind of redirected your life. Tell the folks about it.
Well, it was February 23rd, 1979. I was working an accident on Highway 190. Actually, it was right in East Baton Rouge Parish, because I was bringing a DWI around from the interstate, and I came upon an accident at Old Hammond and 190. And so I called the state, and they said we could stand by. It was a dark, rainy night, cold night. So I had my patrol car behind a car that was disabled, and I was behind my unit getting some flares out of the trunk to light the scene up. And two young ladies that weren't paying attention came along and slammed into the back of me with me standing back there, and broke me up pretty good. Broke both my legs, tore my knees up, just multiple fractures, and it was a mess.
And you had, as I understand it, a lot of surgeries.
I had about 5 or 6 surgeries, was in the hospital for a month at first, and was off from work over a year in a wheelchair for a while, and then a walker and the cane, and
That's humbling.
I've
been down
humbling
that road, but not
that's an
like
understatement.
You.
That's an understatement.
You have to rely on others.
You do, and I did, for everything. And anyone that's ever had both legs broken, you have to rely on someone and they say necessity is the mother of inventions. It's amazing things you can learn to do to compensate when you can't walk, but it was absolutely a life-changing experience, spiritually, physically, career-wise, and the like.
So where you were heading one direction, that happened, and you changed directions. How did you change the direction of your life?
Instead of being super cop and doing all the cool things that cops do, I had to just say that part of my life is gone, but there's a greater need here at the office of things that I can do within the office to advance the sheriff's office and through our court systems, liaison with the DAs and the judges, and then eventually promoted chief deputy, which gave me a chance to really deal with the deputies. At that time, our parish was beginning to grow, and our department was beginning to grow, and training became more of an issue, and equipment became more of an issue, and those are things that was my thing. I love the training, I love the equipment, I love the technology aspect of it. So that's, I think, what I brought to the table and helped the office grow into the office that we knew it was going to need to be, and that's what I did. So that's what my journey took me.
So you kind of went from a front lines guy that basically had to be capable of protecting others and yourself, and because of your injuries, you couldn't do that.
Right. And
you thought you almost were being demoted in a way, I guess, but if that was your desire. But you ultimately are into the administrative part, which ultimately is proven to be quite relevant to what you are now, the sheriff.
It's one of those things, Locke, that I would not take $1 million to stand behind that car again and have somebody run over me, but I wouldn't take $10 million for it to never have happened, because it directed my life to where I needed to be, and here I am today. So I can't really argue with that.
Well, let's talk about as the lieutenant or the second in command under your father, and he didn't just give that to you, you had to earn it.
That's right.
Explain that to the folks.
Well, again, just by my everyday, how I handle my business, stepping up to the plate, being responsible.
All right, we'll continue that on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Sheriff Willie Graves. We'll be right back.
Everybody loves on demand from Cox. Well, did you know the love's about to grow? Soon, your on-demand menu will have a whole new look, making it easier than ever to find your favorite shows, access hundreds of movies, and thousands of free programming choices, even HD. Just like that, so you can watch what you want to watch, when you want to watch it. It just keeps growing better every day. See what's coming on demand and get more out of what you're into with Cox Digital Cable.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have on the show today Willie Graves. He is the sheriff for Livingston Parish. Again, Sheriff, thank you for being on the show.
You bet.
You were talking about your role as the chief deputy under your father, Odom Graves. What specifically did you learn in that role?
Well, you learn how to get along with others. You learn how to delegate, but you learn how to. You were responsible for a lot of things. You had authority over a lot of things, but you were responsible for a lot of things. But I think the most thing it did for me, and hopefully for my dad, is that he had someone else that might have somewhat of a different view or different perspective on whatever the issue at hand may be.
So you're not a yes man? Absolutely
not. That does nobody any good. And I wasn't a yes man, almost to a fault sometimes, because sometimes my ideas were young and enthusiastic, and that was not exactly what our office needed at the beginning, but eventually grew into that. But the bottom line was that I could go to my dad and say, this is what I think, this is what my opinion is. He valued it, and sometimes he took it, but at least he had a different perspective, and that's what he was looking for, and that's what I look for in my chief deputy. Tell me what your thoughts are, tell me what I'm missing here, and then once I get all the information I can get, then at least I know that I'm going to make an informed decision. And my dad knew that whatever I told him, he could believe it, whether he agreed with it or not. He knew what my motives were. He knew that I was telling him this because I truly believed it. I was not self-serving. I was not self-promoting. It was about him. And again, likewise with my chief deputy now. So I think that's and the fact that he was my dad, obviously I'm even more loyal to him.
Sure.
But I kind of got a double whammy sometimes. Whenever your dad's the boss, you get what you get at the office, but then when you get home, you get some more. So I told my department heads, I said, you think you got it bad? I said, what if you had to go home with me and listen to this at the house? But anyway, it was good.
Well, I noticed the motto is "Serve with Pride." Explain that. That's what's on the cars?
That's on our patches, and that's our slogan. It's something I come up with. I mean, everywhere you go, it's to protect and to serve, and that's true with every sheriff's office. But with us, it goes a little bit deeper than that. It's not just about protecting and serving. It's about doing it in a way that, well, first of all, we're humbled. We're appreciative to the people of the parish that are giving us the opportunity to serve. We don't do it boastfully. We don't do it pridefully. We do it with pride. We do it. We're your sheriff's office, and we want to reflect what you want, what you expect, and we're humbled by you giving us the opportunity to do that. So that's the pride is not a prideful thing, and that, hey, look at me, how great I am. It's more of a humble pride.
Well, and it's my understanding that there are about 11 communities or towns. And 80% of the population of Livingston Parish is outside of those towns and therefore fall within your jurisdiction of sheriff. Explain that to the folks.
Well, again, 125,000 people, 100,000+ live in unincorporated areas, which we're the primary first responders for law enforcement, as well as we assist the other agencies, in their day-to-day work. Not as much with Denham Springs City. They're pretty much self-sufficient, although we do work well with them and cooperate with them on a lot of things. Town of Walker has their own daytime dispatch, but beyond that, every other jurisdiction in the parish agency, we dispatch for them. We assist them with their major crimes through narcotics and then detectives and any equipment that we have, whatever we have, the departments in this parish have, whether it be, aviation or command centers or SRT or whatever it is, what we have, they have, and likewise, we all work well together.
So there's great cooperation between the city cops, the sheriff's office. What about state police?
Absolutely, and one of the greatest things that, among the greatest things that Governor Bobby Jindal did was to promote Colonel Mike Evanson as head of the state police. I've known Mike for 20 some odd years. He's always a good guy, and he's still a good guy. He's very much in tune to the state police and local law enforcement and the value that both have for each other. He's done a remarkable job at changing the morale of that department and just bringing all law enforcement, city police, sheriffs, and state police together, working together in unison, which obviously better serves the public.
And in fact, I think I saw a recording where there was the sheriff's or police office of Ascension Parish, East Baton Rouge Parish, and Livingston Parish all basically indicated we're communing together. We're all striving for the same goal, which is protecting our population.
Absolutely.
There's 100 miles of waterways in Livingston Parish. Explain kind of the predicament or what that results for you.
Well, it can be very challenging. Some of it is navigable, some of it isn't, but we have a lot of boat traffic. We have a lot of tourism in our parish related to our waterways because obviously through the Amite Diversion Canal, Tick Fall River, We have access to Lake Marpol, Lake Pontchartrain, the Gulf of Mexico, and the world. So we have anything from 100-foot yachts coming through to jet skis, and logistically it can be pretty demanding on a relatively narrow waterway at times, just policing that, keeping everybody safe, between lost boaters, boating accidents, drownings.
I think we read about
we had one this past weekend on Avey River North near Watson, which not really navigable waterway, so it made it even more difficult. A very dangerous stretch of river. We discourage people from swimming in it, especially in those areas, but they do anyway. It was very tragic. The man trying to save his son and lost his own life. But we do water patrols, regular patrols. We have a lot of residences or camps that are only accessible by water. So our river patrol is the main responder for that, and they go routinely checking the camps, especially in the wintertime. And during the week and during weekends, we're out there in force trying to keep everybody safe.
Well, let's talk about your various chiefs. You mentioned that you were the deputy chief for your father. I believe you have 6 or 7 folks.
Well, we have the rank structure is the sheriff, chief criminal deputy, chief civil deputy, chief of operations, warden, administrative assistant, and chief of detectives. And that's pretty much our department heads, if you will, and then it branches off from there to uniform patrol, corrections, civil division, tax collection, and branches off to a number of other specific divisions.
It's interesting, as a sheriff, you would think, because all you see is the sheriff officers riding around in their cars and dealing with traffic accidents or rescue or whatever, criminal, but there's a criminal side to the sheriff's office, and then there's a civil side to the office. Explain that to the folks.
Well, Louisiana is unique in a lot of ways, and one of which is the sheriff's office. Some other states, but Louisiana in particular, the sheriff is the ex officio tax collector, and he is actually the office. There is no sheriff's department, unlike some states. That sheriff's office is a department of the county and answers directly to county officials and that sort of thing. In Louisiana, we don't. Also, Louisiana, again, the sheriff being the ex officio tax collector, we collect the taxes. We collect ad valorem taxes, and we disperse that.
Which is the taxes on property?
Sure, that's right. We also do sheriff sales. We do seizures. We do civil processing.
Which is serving subpoenas.
Serving divorce papers and restraining orders and that sort of thing, which most other no other police agencies do. That's strictly the job of the sheriff. So we have all the responsibility of what we call traditional law enforcement duties, plus all the other things that most people don't really see or hear about.
How is the sheriff's department funded? Because as we were discussing, the parish has grown just in a tremendous rate, and the demands, I assume because you have more people coming, crime is potentially going to go up. So you have a need for greater personnel. How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, to answer your first question, our funding source is primarily through property taxes and sales taxes. We have a half-cent sales tax parish-wide, and we have a millage of our property taxes. We also collect funds off commissions of sheriff's sale, other fees, occupational licenses, and things of that nature. But the majority of our funding comes from property taxes and sales taxes. Now, it seems like revenue always lags behind demand. Our parish for the last 15, 20 years has been growing just tremendously. We've talked about that. The demands are always ahead of the resources to meet them. Of course, as people come, they bring their money with them through the sales tax. They spend money, it goes up. But we don't have the industry like other parishes do. So it's starting to catch up. The recession has hurt us, but it'll catch back up. But that's how we get our money.
And I think, in fact, you mentioned that your father had gone to the people. You literally had the power to go to the people as a sheriff and say, we need more funds. We need you to raise the taxes either on sales and or property. And they did that for your father.
Between the sales tax or property tax, the people have to vote on it themselves. They have to impose the tax on themselves, and they did. We're very grateful.
All right, well, we'll talk about that on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith, Legal Line. Sheriff Willie Graves. We'll be right back.
Did you know that high-def programming from Cox is free? That's right. Cox gives you a ton of HD channels for no additional cost. Your favorite HD channels, your local channels in HD, and even more HD choices with On Demand, and more being added every day. So get a whole lot more HD for a whole lot less with Cox Digital Cable.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have on the show today Sheriff Willie Graves. He's the sheriff for the Parish of Livingston. Again, Sheriff, thank you for being on the show.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about how unique Louisiana is in the sense that as the sheriff, you have to deal with the criminal component of the job, but you also have a civil side of the job. You talked about the civil side of the job as being tax collection, process serving in litigation, suits, trials, that type of stuff. There's the criminal side also. Tell the folks basically how you handle the crime side of this.
Well, the majority of our criminal side is our uniform patrol. That's all the blue and whites are actually out there catching calls. We also have our detective division that falls under that, and we have other specialized divisions. Our motor division, traffic division,
which is motorcycles.
Motorcycles. They primarily do escorts, funeral escorts, working traffic speed zones. They work out the major accidents and fatalities on parish roads. We have our SRT, our Special Response Team, or also known as the SWAT team, that we have a very, very good SWAT team. Matter of fact, we just finished second in the state in our state competition behind our friends in Baton Rouge City Police.
Congratulations to both.
Congratulations to Baton Rouge City. It's always a good, healthy competition between the two of us, and we're always looking over our shoulder at each other. So they make us better, but we work real well with them, have a great SRT team. Have our aviation division, which we started a few years ago. We now have two OH-58 helicopters, completely equipped. Our Air One has a FLIR, forward-looking infrared. It has night sun, it's night vision capability. We can do a lot of things with that. It's really proven to be a great asset for us since its inception. Our Marine division, we talk about our waterways and that sort of thing. So that
it seems like the sheriff's office is pretty high tech, because I also read that y'all have the computers and the video cameras in your cars, the squad cars, and you're able to record for video for evidence purposes. And the units literally can be tracked where they are in the parish by the main dispatcher.
That's right.
Satellite.
You try to stay at least up with the technology and what have you, and we try to do that. We have in-car video cameras, which is extremely important, not only for evidentiary purposes. We've had several accidents involving our patrol cars that we're able to use because the digital cameras nowadays, you can not have it on, have a crash, it'll automatically go back 30 seconds prior to the crash and show you what it saw. So we're able to determine exactly what happened in car crashes. It's been very, very invaluable. The laptop computers, we can dispatch straight from the dispatcher into the car with all the information being sent to the computer, which is helpful when they begin creating their reports. A lot of that information is already on the report, already started, so it saves them time. And we talked earlier about the number of complaints that and file numbers we issue every year.
I think it was 36,000 calls per month.
Our guys they're steady rolling. So anything we do to expedite that report writing process and make it more accurate, the better. So our training, our weaponry, the requirements we put on our people physically and academically, we want the deputies to be the very best they can be at whatever they're doing, because the people of our parish deserve nothing less.
Let's talk about the jails. I know for a while there, for a long time, y'all had basically a small jail, about 150 folks or so, and then you've just completed another detention center. A
little over a year ago, we moved in our new detention center. It can house just under 700 people, and it's been a godsend. It's unfortunate that we need a jail.
Is it at capacity already?
Not completely. There are empty beds. Several months ago, our maximum security wing was at capacity, and we had to outsource some of those inmates to other facilities. But
explain to the folks what that means, because that's really what you had to do prior to this detention. So
right. Well, prior to this happening, there was a time when we had more inmates being held out of parish than we did in parish, and when there's no room at the end, but you still have to keep them. So we found other facilities who had spare beds.
Do you have to pay for that?
Absolutely. The parish government, whose responsibility it is to house and pay for inmates, they had to pay, those other parishes that held those inmates, and it cost the parish a tremendous amount of money. So, but we have our new facility now, so we had to do that for a few months, but we have everybody back in-house now, and there is some beds available. It's only possible because we stay on top of it and try to get people through the system as quick as we can, people that can bond out, other diversionary programs, ankle bracelets, anything we do to help people accountable, but yet at least get them out of our facility to not cost the taxpayers any more money than what they have to.
So basically, those who are non-violent type criminals, you've got other ways of dealing with them.
Correct.
Those who are violent, you're going to keep them in there,
That's
whatever
right.
You got to do.
Exactly.
Talk about the educational components of the Sheriff's Office. I know that y'all have the DARE program and a lot of community events and schools that you go to.
Well, we do have the DARE program, which some would argue how effective or ineffective it is. To me, it's the best thing going, unless someone comes up with something.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. People just say that it doesn't work, and I guess they're based on the fact that we still have kids growing up doing drugs. Well, yeah, but how many more would there be if there weren't for a program such as DARE? But going to the DARE programs, going to the DARE graduations, talking to the kids, talking to the parents, you can see that something is happening. Now, whether they maintain it or not, or whether it's continued to be encouraged as they grow older by their parents, I don't know. But I know that right now, when we have a DARE student, he's looking at that DARE officer differently than what he did his first day of DARE. And by looking at the DARE officer differently, he's looking at law enforcement differently.
Explain to the folks what the DARE program does.
The DARE brings law enforcement, the school system, and families together.
How?
Well, we're basically
Do you go
just
to schools,
reinforcing.
or do you...
Oh yeah, we go to the schools. We're in every 5th grade class in the parish.
So that's the grade. 5th grade is when when the police
right.
department sheriff's department makes contact with the students.
That's exactly right. So every 5th grade student in Livingston Parish, either before the school year's out, will have gone through the DARE program. It's just, the way that the curriculum is designed, it works. We work with the parents, we interact with the parents, with the school officials, and it's just kind of reinforcing the same messages that parents have told their kids for all these years, but hearing it from somebody else, sometimes it seems to carry a little bit more weight. But we just find it very, very helpful in establishing a good relationship with the kids. And not just in the use of drugs, but we have people coming up now that we see that are 20, 30 years old and still remember their DARE officer's name.
So you are educating not only the students, but the teachers and the parents.
Exactly.
Very interesting. And it's your view that it's been very productive.
Absolutely.
I know that you hear and read stuff that there's a lot of type of drug activity that occurs in Livingston. In your view, is that decreasing or increasing, or what is the cause of that?
Well, the big increase that we've had over the years is crystal methamphetamine.
Right.
Anybody that reads the paper or sees the news realize that almost every week we're busting a meth lab. Now, some would say we have an epidemic there, we have maybe more than others. I don't think so. I think we have our share for a parish our size. I think what's happening is that we're very, very proactive. Our deputies are trained on what to look for. A lot of our arrests are made prior to the lab being created, because we were instrumental a number of years ago in working with the legislature to make components of crystal meth illegal if they're possessed at the same time.
Excellent.
So a lot of our busts are being made prior to the lab being created.
Preemptive strike.
Exactly. So, and we're very aggressive. We're very proactive. Our deputies are trained. They know what to look for. It's out there. It's everywhere. Now, some agencies that maybe aren't quite as in tune to what it looks like or smells like or what have you. We have a great support from the community, who is also becoming educated in crystal meth.
And that's a key, isn't it?
Absolutely key.
That if you have your community and the residents giving you information, because they become your eyes and your ears, and you don't know what you're not told. And so if they inform you, you can do something.
Absolutely. And crystal meth labs are very clandestine. They're very secretive. And so it's hard to just know it just by knowing it. You need somebody to give you the information. And many times it's a neighbor who sees something or smells something and by keeping up with the news and over the years learning what it looks like, it smells like, and some of the telltale signs, they're able to call and give us that information, sometimes family members. But the support of the community is what's really helped us attack a lot of this. And we've sent a lot of people to the penitentiary, and we've sent a lot of people out of the parish. So sooner or later this wave is going to crest, I hope. But right now there's still people out there doing it, so we're out there arresting them.
So what would you say is going great in Livingston Parish?
Everything. I mean, we're blessed. We have a great parish, great people, a great place to live, work, and raise your kids and go to school. So come on in, the water's great.
Sheriff, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, and Sheriff Willie Graves, thank you for being with us.